more window to consider other choices, and they're gonna ban the high-lows, which has been a thorn in the backside for VFM.
That's right. And for EVOS Esports SG, they could still rely on other sort of frontliners other than the high-lows as well. So Rock's definitely going to be in the picture, while VFM now could actually go for that Kaja that we talked about and instantaneously locking that Changer as well as Kaya at the same time. But I got to say, Hyde played a Changer equivalently as good as Oh Dear Bambi.
Yeah, and Oh Dear Bambi went for Chang'e in game 1, went for the Gord in game 2, and there was a stark difference that that Gord was not as effective in the early to mid phase as compared to the Chang'e. A perfect deny pick. VFM, they are so confident, they were like, alright guys, let's first face this Chang'e. We're not giving away any breathing room to EVOS SG, and they're doing it just right. Now you have the Kaya. If Yao Piao gets called out, this is slightly better than Chill because you don't put yourself out of position. So VFM would definitely appreciate this. EVOS SG, they go for the Valiant and they might lock in the Masha.
That's definitely a great start for the side of EVOS SG. Now, of course, they're giving away a lot of all that sort of pressure in terms of team fighting. But look at what VFM is up to right here. Great sort of a pick-off potential, especially with Divine Judgment as well as Hurricane Dance. With that sort of combo, you could actually force a lot of all these team fights in their own favor. And with that being said, EVOS needs to actually respond right now. What should they ban away in this very final phase? And this is life or death for both teams.
Yeah, and you have the Masha on your team. You have to be thinking about banning the Tamus out again, because VFM Tamus is looking particularly juicy for them. And if Tamus gets banned, VFM, we've seen them play the Leomont. Teeny on that Leomont was absolutely amazing. Crushed RRQ in both the games that they win and lost. So VFM, they have a plethora of options to go to, and EVOS, they're going to let both go through that ban phase.
I like the idea of having that Leomort to come in towards the phase, but now, of course, we haven't seen Leomort being played throughout Group A so far, and Soul is one player who does dish out that sort of pick from time to time, and that Phantom Seed is definitely vital in terms of getting themselves that sort of great team fight potential that they have. And now, and towards the very final event for VFM, and the opt to lock away that Harif from coming into the picture. And of course, EVOS could still go for that sort of a double mage setup and turn Harif in towards that marksman. So now, from the side of VFM, they gotta secure their marksman right here. I feel like it's either that Granger, Cloud has already been banned away, so there's also carry, but I would say that from the side of EVOS SG, they're eyeing on getting themselves that carry in their hands.
Yeah, absolutely, and Pick Your Poison right now is the name of the game for VFM. They have played the Leomon actually against RRQ 2 games in a row. They won one, they lost one.
Totally forgot about that.
But Teeny was amazing on the Leomon, so we can't deny that he was an absolute monster today. And like you said, they're going to pick up the Granger first because both Damos and Leomon went through. If VFM wants, they can pick any one of them if the situation calls for it. Now it's EVOS' turn to make their choice.
Pretty tough picks here. And EVOS really got to decide really well. They've only got about 30 seconds or less to make sure that they get through and towards the next phases of M1 World Championship. Now, Potato as well as Soul making the hard decisions. They still need to make sure that they secure themselves that marksman in their hands. So we haven't really seen all too much of the Kimmy being brought into play, but I feel like Kimmy is in a really good state in terms of the early game. And wow, we totally forgot about the Esmeralda as well. And it's great to see Oh Dear Bambi securing this for a second time coming. Well, in that sort of sense, this is also, in a way, having a lot of great magic damage output throughout the entirety of EVOS' lineup.
Yeah, instant deny pick of the Esmeralda. It could be another option that VFM can choose from. So you kind of narrow down the alternatives for the Vietnamese team. But they're gonna stick with the Leomon over the either the Leomon or the Damos. It's just up to the kind of playstyle that they want to bring to this.
Yep, and for the pick of Esmeralda, all they have to do is just try to actually get themselves that sort of early lead for Oh Dear Bambi. And I would say that VFM really has to look out for that Valor, because is definitely going to be one of the key members of EVOS to be chunking out a lot of all that damage in all these fights. Now, heading in towards this sort of picks for both sides, who do you favor the most to actually take the series between EVOS versus VFM?
I'm still slightly leaning towards VFM simply because of how aggressive they are in terms of efficiency when they get the heroes that they need. The Archive, the Chang'e, the Granger, maybe not the Granger, the Kaja, especially these 3 cores. But on the side of EVOS, I think this is a 50-50 game.
That 50-50 indeed, and now it's really down to the execution, because all the drafts we saw, even sometimes when you do get that pick in your favor, it may not be exactly the way that you wanted to, if there's going to be any sort of a comms breakdown, or even, you know, getting that sort of jitters, because sometimes, so for some of all these players, they may be familiar back in their hometown, but now this is definitely not their home turf in that sort of sense, where they are playing at Malaysia for the current time being. So, of course, the Singaporean side has visited a lot more than VFM in that sort of sense. Maybe they might feel a little bit comfort, but of course, that's all these sort of speculations that we can possibly talk about. But now, Game 3 is about to begin, as we will see who will be walking out alive in this matchup between EVOS SG versus VEC Fantasy Main.
The deciding game of Group A, and it comes down to Singapore, Malaysia against Vietnam. Can Vietnam break through that Great Wall, or will EVOS actually stand?
Well, we're talking about walls here. There should be no barricades separating them from what they are looking for, the prize. The prize pool of $250,000 up for grab. But look at Soto right in between all these members of VFM. Of course, pretty much of a gutsy move coming in from Seoul, but you know, Masha is pretty hard to take down, especially in level 1. But look at the side of EVOS SG playing their signature style, just being aggressive on those rates. But from the side of VEC Fantasy Main, they're replying with the same sort of response over on the bottom side of the jungle.
And Game 3 is always the most fun game to watch, because everything just goes out the window. Now, instead of playing traditionally, playing by textbook, you're looking at both teams who want to try something wacky themselves. So they're trying to go for Broly, but not a good choice right there. 3 members from VFM in the vicinity, forcing this Masha back.
Well, we're just seeing Seoul here buying a little bit more time for himself, but look at JLPL, though, bringing up the walls, and now it's going to be Lucky jumping in between, trying to clear out the wave. This might just be first blood in the hands of EVO Singapore.
Yeah, EVO Singapore, they know that they had that siege minions, that siege wave. There was no way this level 2 Archive would clear that wave out in time, and they just pounced on him, getting that first blood. VFM, they tried to go for a similar response on that bottom lane onto Seoul, not able to get the same result.
Yeah, and we're seeing a rival for the side of the Tamas, as well as a great sprint for the Kai and for VFM here. We're already seeing them getting into position, trying to catch out JPL. But look at that go. And EVOS SG, they had some clear-cut options over on the top side, and they've already opened up a little bit more space for themselves as they try to secure the first turtle of the game.
Yeah, when you play against Kimi, you have to always keep in mind that your structures are actually just jello against this Gatling gun of the particular hero. But VFM, we talk about how they use all this space to secure objectives. They just got the first turtle of the game.
That's right, and of course, speaking of securing something right there, there's something for you guys to secure with the redemption code as well. But oh my goodness!
T-Max.
Oh, that was way too close.
Yeah, his fingers must be severely shaking, severely shivering from that flicker, but it did keep him alive to fight another day, and that also means that EVOS SG will find it harder to transition that particular collapse into anything else.
And we're looking at all these members resetting this fight. And VEC Fantasy Main, they know that they cannot afford to commit in any of these battles for the time being. And look at them go. JPL always getting all these sort of great advantages against VFM. And now, speaking of him, he's just going to be eyeing out on towards the lower side of the jungle. And Lucky's going to push them all the way back. Flicker has been forced away from the side of Ace. And look at JPL, still trying to trade all the way back. And they've already got all the information that they need, while Tamas is having a little bit of solo time, 1v1 over on the top side against that Masha. So Not much has actually concluded out of that sort of tickle in between the way, but over there Bambi is not even giving themselves any sort of good time at all as they try to take down the second turret over on the bottom side.
With meteor shower from high, managed to clear the entire minion wave, and Kimi Potato taking a bit too much damage, but now the 1 versus 1 continues. It's just a brute fight for both top laners.
Well, not only for the top laners, it's going to be a little bit of that river action as well. T-Max almost getting himself in the way of landing a Divine Judgment. Oh, it's going to be a 1v1 commitment, but Soul will definitely bail out of this.
Ooh.
And, well, Flicker being popped here, and of course, not that wise of a decision. But look at old year Bambi coming with the ult, and that will be a rival out of that in just a split second of the time. Well, I would say great plays coming from both sides.
And second turtle going to VEC Fantasy main. Teeny forced out the flicker from Soul, gets the arrival, avoided Odia Bambi. That was just perfect game sense from this Stamos. And even though right now EVOS has a slight goal lead, but those turtles are going to add up eventually. And T-Max gets the Divine Judgment. That is 1 kill onto Valley. It's going to be 2 because of the Hurricane Dance. They find the Grok as well. Zhao Piao not going to survive that, and Odia Bambi has to get the heck out of that fight.
Whoa, he's walking into his trap, and what was he thinking cutting back in towards the brush? He could have just walked inside of the jungle, but oh dear Bambi making a little bit of the slight mishaps here, and EVOS somehow losing that lead. And speaking of lost lead, let's have a look into what just happened right here by the corners. And not only that sort of kill, look at Bambi. He hopped right back in, and he walked through the edge of the brush, which is something that should not be made in that sort of scenario. Now, EVOS at least get a little bit of that trade back or consolation prize over the bottom
or maybe
side.
not.
Oh, yep, maybe not.
So they found him with a Deadly Sonata, and Soul will have his Soul claim. And Hyde will find him. Zhao Piao again called out by the Divine Judgment. They try to finish him off, but Tini pops that ultimate. The rest of EVOS now coming out as the backup. T-Max is going to get gunned down by Potato, but Hyde with a meteor shower will rain on top of Esmeralda. And oh dear Bambi. EVOS actually not having a good time in this one.
Oh, this is definitely very unlikely of the playstyle of old year Bambi. He hardly make this sort of mishaps across the battlefield, and now he's 0-2 down in this early phase. But of course, it's still not too much of a huge deficit. But in terms of goal, we see that power spike headed towards South VEC, but Lucky is gonna get caught out with that wall charge. And oh my goodness, we talk about Lucky. Yes, he is indeed very, very lucky.
Meanwhile, for Broly, maybe not the same treatment, but backup is there. T-Max protects this Granger, gets him out of safety. And EVOS SG, it seems like the jitters might be slowly getting onto them. They know that they have the entire pride, the entire weight of 2 nations on their shoulders.
And of course, this is not the only EVOS team that's around. There's also EVOS Indonesia, of course known as EVOS Legends. Here, look at that sort of swing of a goal, suddenly in the favor of VEC Fantasy. And wow, things have definitely turned red. And VEC Fantasy main wants to fly the red flag with the stars right in between. And look at JPL already about the corners here, and this is way too much for VFM, for him to actually deal with VFM. That's going to be the side being bought there by old year Bambi, but Tiny falling pretty much low. He could not actually contest with the Masha for any longer, but towers has been lost, and VFM here is just taking absolute control of those river.
Oh, they found Odia Bambi. Odia Bambi instantly assassinated once more. That is the 3rd time they caught this Esmeralda with his pants down, and VFM, they did not hesitate to jump on him. And meanwhile, another man fight is against the Masha and Thomas. Guess what? Lucky not going to make it fair for him, and so will lose his life. And EVOS SG falling apart across the entire map.
One after another getting caught out is not looking good for the side of EVOS Singapore, as we see 7-2 in favor of VEC Fantasy main. And of course, Tiny getting even more tough to deal with in towards the late phase here. And we're seeing members of EVOS now once again on the back foot, but can they defend? We talk about the Great Wall, or in that sort of sense, the great defensive strats that we see from EVOS SG. Could they pull one up and perhaps come back in this game.
They will need to rebuild the wall at this point because VFM, with every single passing second, they're getting closer and closer to that crystal, that structure that EVOS actually desperately needs to hold on with their life. But VFM, we talk about their efficiency with objective. Under 9 minutes, they're going on to that Lord. EVOS actually, they don't have a way in, and this is a free Lord for VFM.
VFM here is securing what they need to end the game. But of course, this is just Lord level 1, which may not be the tankiest of it all, but it should be sufficient enough for them to go in for a great setup. As we look at the wave, it has already been pushing from the top side as well, and we see Soul running for his life, and Potato still getting some of all these items out as well. Now, 9 minutes into the game, but EVOS SG now on the back foot here, and they desperately need this one win to actually get at least that tie into their hands. But if they do win VEC Fantasy right here, which means that up to head-to-head, they will still be above VEC. So it's really down to the wire, do or die moment for the members of EVOS. But same go VFM here, getting that huge confidence of that previous game, and now we're seeing a 1v1 on the bottom.
The disarm does come up from Soul, but he just does not care. He's gonna eat him for breakfast. Solo kill, and meanwhile JLPL has to run away, but they will find him with the final shot from Broly. 2 down for EVOS SG. The wall builder has been taken out of the picture for a good amount of time, and now the meteor shower is going to be a celebratory ultimate for now.
Well, now things are looking pretty bleak, but there's still members alive. It's all up to the Valor, Esmeralda, as well as Kimi to hold the fortress right here. And being bought there from the side of Thomas as well. And now they're committing to actually go in for the pull. And Tiny already having a little bit of minutes. They're going to end this game. Oh my goodness, they're turning things around.
The defense is coming in from EVOS SG. They're going to play from behind, but VFM, all this is red. It's Vietnam written all over the scoreboard, and they will survive. The wall has fallen, and VFM, they lock in their spot.
They managed to clutch things off, and decisively, VFM takes the series 2-1. But it was definitely a long, hard-fought match for the side of EVOS SG, as this will be the defeat that will seal their fate. And unfortunately for them, they will not make it past in terms of calculation. But we still have a little bit more to see who will possibly get the first seed for Group A, because we still have another matchup coming up much later on between Impunity, KH, as well as RRQ. But wow, what a match this was. Initially, we saw EVOS getting that lead, and slowly, with a couple of mistakes, and then VFM punished them for it, and now we're seeing Hyde as the MVP of this matchup.
They just got all the picks that they need, and they capitalized on that advantage. EVOS SG, I wouldn't say that it was an outdraft. I would say that VFM just felt in the zone for the last 2 games, and with this win, they are actually a point ahead of RRQ, 6 points compared to RRQ's 5 points, who still has 1 game against Impunity PH after this. But we're going to take a look at the highlights of this particular game. The last recap brought to you by U Mobile.
That's right, and we're seeing EVOS Esports, of course, getting some pickups here from the side of VAFM, and this is where things start to turn around as well, where, of course, that 2 kill leads, and Bambi here making that sort of a mistake, which I would say was pretty costly, especially